So Doina, thank you so much for being a guest. I know you've had to put up with my constant requests. I know you're a very busy lady, so I apologize that I've been like a dog with a bone. But great to have you as a guest on the podcast.
Well, Ben, thank you for inviting me, and it's a pleasure. Absolutely no worries about pinging me all the time. I really wanted to do this, and thank you for being resilient with me having to postpone a couple of times, because that's always difficult to find the right time for these things.
Yeah, no, and obviously we've met before, we've spoken before. You've helped us with some content in the past, so I love your story, and I think it's great to get that out to as many people as possible. And obviously, you are very well known already. But for the benefit of anyone that maybe hasn't read some of your story from the past or hasn't met you, can you tell us a bit about who you are and your background, just to give some listeners some context?
Sure. So I have been working in technology for more than 20 years already, but I have been passionate about technology for probably like 30 years. So I'm that old, yes. It's been a ride. I initially started with a passion in physics, funnily enough. So I've pretty much always been in STEM, physics, mathematics. But then when I was 12 years old, my dad bought me a computer. And it was fascinating to me. I started programming. I discovered how you can use computers and how interesting that was. Obviously, I discovered games. So I was playing those kind of very old games that probably nobody remembers them, like Lemmings and Dave and all of those. But it was all fascinating. So that shifted my interest towards computer science, and I went on and studied computer science. In between, I kind of married the two. So my kind of assessment in computer science in high school was something where I had an application of visualization, how different types of particles from physics interact with each other when they are differently charged and that kind of geeky stuff. But it was interesting to apply computer science and programming in that kind of real field in a way. So it was not just theoretical programming. So I studied computer science in Romania. I was one of the 5 ladies in a group of about 150 people in my class. So that was interesting. It was also a good experience because nobody was thinking of that kind of difference, and nobody was acting any differently, regardless of the fact that we were just so few women, right?
Sure.
So that was an interesting experience. And then probably thinking of my most recent experiences that are relevant, I've worked on Salesforce technologies for about 10 years of those, so about half of the time of my working life. I love it. My most recent role was as CIO for Salesforce at Barclays, so one of the biggest financial services institutions in the world. Before that, I was the CTO for Salesforce at Capgemini, which was, again, a great experience. And for 5 years, I was one of the senior advisors at the mothership, so to speak, at Salesforce, which was one of the most amazing experiences of my life, yeah.
Sure. And obviously you haven't mentioned it, but you are a CTA, which is a huge achievement, and one that you've missed off, but I think one that so many people are striving for, right?
I'm a CTA. I'm humbled, proud, happy to have managed to get that, because it's a lot of learning that one has to put in, but it's so valuable in terms of really becoming the best that you can be in a setting. It's not necessarily the certification itself, but it's being the best architect that you can be and having that kind of deep understanding. So I'm happy about that one.
Sure. So if you look, you've had some massive success, and obviously we will focus on the Salesforce ecosystem because that's our audience and that's where we play. But you've had some massive success, some of the roles you've played, the CTA. What do you think some of your core skills are that have enabled that success?
I am a constant learner. I'm very curious. I really love learning something new, whether that's technical knowledge, whether that's personal development, I never want to feel like I'm stalling. So this is what's keeping me going. I'm very curious, and I'm also probably very resilient. So no matter how many setbacks I have had, I always tried to find a way to bounce back. And this is probably what I would advise many other people. Yes, we will all have setbacks, but it's good to work through those times.
Sure. So then if we look at the CTA path and the review board, when you were preparing for that, I guess resilience really comes into that, because a lot of people throughout the process will think, I've got so many gaps, how am I going to fill them, and so on. What did you identify as your main gaps for passing the review board, and then how did you fill those gaps?
So I had been working on Salesforce for quite a while, so I had a lot of experience. That was not necessarily a challenge for me, and I was quite hands-on with the technical aspects, with having worked in different business contexts, different industries. So that was all good and nice. However, what I realized when I was studying for the CTA, and even after I got at that time multiple choice exam, I still had to go back and review all of the materials, everything. Even if I was saying I'm a good developer, right? It didn't matter. I still had to go back and study every single item. For me, probably the biggest challenges were identity management, single sign-on, all of those things that I hadn't used so much. And also just finding that cadence and that balance between me being a perfectionist and wanting to make the perfect presentation, the perfect artifact, and to explain in every single detail how one piece of requirement would be solved. Finding that balance of what's the right level of diagram prettiness, of explanation of the solution, and still getting everything in time, touching all of the components. That was the biggest challenge, to be honest, for me.
Sure.
So repetition of how do you actually deliver and prove the knowledge.
And did you have a coach to help with that, like someone that had been through it before?
I was very fortunate because at that time I was working for Salesforce, and I did get a couple of colleagues who were CTAs to help me out. And the way they were helping me out was with just listening to my presentation and then either sighing very loudly and then giving me feedback in the beginning, or just being that kind of sounding board for me to really find that kind of cadence. And even funny, stupid little things like I was saying the wrong word, even if I knew the concept, like for relay state, I was always saying replay state. I don't know why, but I wasn't even realizing it, right? So then my CTA coach, Dennis, you probably know him, Dennis Tong. He's an amazing guy. He told me at the end of the presentation, yeah, that was good. So that's going to be a passing mark in terms of knowledge. But do you realize you always say that word instead of the other one? I was like, no.
Yeah, that's, I guess, why it's so important to have someone help you, right? And you would never have known had you not had that feedback. So yeah, that's really interesting. And you've been in, I guess, quite a unique position, because we don't see this so often, that someone has worked for Salesforce, has worked for a big SI, and has worked for a big end user. So what did you get from each of those? They're obviously very different, but what were the what kind of insight did you get from each? And I guess, how did you feel about working in the different environments? What were the benefits of each for you as an individual?
Really good question. So yes, they were at the same time very different and having strong similarities. And what do I mean by that? I specifically wanted to get that kind of breadth of experience and exposure to each of those environments. So I started my Salesforce life, so to speak, at a small ISV partner. So I also got that experience. Then moving to Salesforce was an amazing experience in itself, and I can give details on that. And then each of them was similar, like I was saying, because technology can be applied and the same concepts can be applied no matter of the context. So I was thinking at the base of it, at the same enterprise architecture concepts and the same best practices, but you just had to shift your mind into what does the business need, and in different ways. So if you think about the ISV partner, it was all about scalability. How do I make a product that is robust, that can still grow and be flexible for many customers in a sense that doesn't affect any of them, right? So that's one thing. Then when I was at Salesforce, it was all about enterprise customers, very complex requirements, global solutions, deploying centers of excellence, making really challenging optimizations. So it was very much focused on the largest, most strategic customers of Salesforce, who had very diverse and complex needs.
Sure.
Then moving to Capgemini, it's of course very different, because that's where all of the heavy lifting of delivery of projects, the responsibility of those deliveries and the successful go live, that's on the consulting and the systems integrator side, right? And you have to strike this balance between being the best advisor and a trusted advisor to your customers, when you sometimes have to even say difficult messages to your customers and advise them in directions where they wouldn't think of going, maybe,
Sure.
for their best interest. And then if you think of Barclays, that was an amazing experience, because that was, from my perspective, the most complete one, starting from thinking of business vision, strategy, how do you apply technology in the bigger enterprise architecture context, in the bigger business context. Then all the way, I was also responsible for the execution of projects across Barclays UK and a large part of the bank. Striking that balance between how innovative can you be versus the compliance requirements, and versus being very mindful about how you manage your customers' needs and finances and everything, right? So that's not an easy thing. And then all the way to having a happy team, an engaged team, working with a mixed team onshore and offshore. So it was really complex and complete, very fulfilling experience. And to be honest, I've worked with some of the most amazing people during this whole career, and at Barclays, I can't even say, to be honest, how much respect I have for those people who are able to balance all of that responsibility, all of that huge responsibility, with still being innovative and redefining themselves.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, you really have had some exposure to lots of different challenges, and I guess it leads you on to now being a business owner, which we will get to. But you mentioned earlier one of your core skills or strengths is that you constantly want to learn. So right now, what skills are you still trying to learn and develop and grow, that perhaps it's just a constant evolution of needing to keep up?
Always the technical stuff. I always, no matter if I'm a business owner, if I will focus maybe more in the future on business development or sales or whatever, I still want to be very close to technology. I believe you can be a really good business person if you understand in detail what you're talking about, and that to me is the technology that I'm basing my work upon. So I keep learning about machine learning, artificial intelligence, I don't know, analytics, now how does Tableau work together with Einstein Analytics, those kind of things, right? So I'm very interested still in the technical stuff, but on the other hand, I'm also learning about how do you effectively run a business? How can you be a better leader, maybe give better feedback to your team so that they can grow. One of my passions is helping people get into the ecosystem, helping people learn and develop. So then how can I help them on that path?
Sure.
Communication is always something you can work on.
Yeah, for sure. So how is life as a business owner? How have you found that transition from employed to now owning a business?
Oh, well, it's super exciting. However, it's also challenging, and every small business owner knows this, especially during these crises. So there are times when you're thinking, have I made the right decision? Is this going to go well? But then probably what you have to do is just trust yourself and do the best that you can.
Sure.
And yes, sometimes it's kind of scary. Sometimes it's really exciting, and you're really able to make a difference no matter how small that is, and only think about how do you grow that impact.
Yeah, nice. So is it something you had always wanted to do, or is it something that's kind of just become a plan over the last few years? How's that evolved for you?
Um, I've always been interested in the entrepreneurship space, and this is why at some point I went and studied innovation and business creation. So I went and did an executive MBA at the Technical University of Munich because I wanted to learn about those concepts. I wanted to have a basis, having been all the time in technology. I didn't really know about finance management and all of those kind of adjacent aspects of running a business. Of course, it never occurred to me that I might need them, so why study them, right?
Sure.
But then I went and studied this, and at some point, when I unfortunately had to leave Barclays for personal reasons, having to move back to Germany, I was thinking, okay, so what other next step would be as exciting as what I had done there and what I had done before? And nothing else came to mind that would have topped at that point the experience that I had. So I didn't want to
Sure.
do anything less impactful or less interesting. So I thought, okay, maybe it's time to start a business. That's going to be interesting. And it's
Yeah, yeah,
been
no.
interesting.
Well, yeah, timing aside, I think it's always interesting, right? But
Mm.
you've definitely picked an interesting time to be going through it. But I'm sure it will continue to be successful because of the brand and knowledge that you have, right? So so we first caught up. It must have been like 2015 Dreamforce. I was kind of just finding my feet in the ecosystem, and you still gave me plenty of time and sat down with me and actually worked on some content with me way back then. So I've always been very grateful for that. But the market and the ecosystem has grown so much over the years, and the platform just continues to kind of grow and innovate. And there's new acquisitions all of the time. So we can't run through every acquisition or every new cloud or offering from Salesforce. But which areas of Salesforce really excite you now and have your interest?
Mm-hmm. Great question. So I'll first of all start by addressing the first part of what you said with me helping you out when you were starting your business. It was honestly because I really liked your business concept, in the sense of I had the feeling that you're really trying to do the right thing for your kind of customers. And I really liked that because it was quite rare in that industry to find someone with that kind of commitment to quality and to doing the right thing. So this is why I really liked you as a person, of course, and your business concept. So thank you for that, for making this a better world for all of us, right?
Oh, thank you. That means a lot.
And the second part of your question, sure, the Salesforce ecosystem platform, whatever you want to call it, is growing all the time, and it probably will keep growing. And there's no person that can know it all. What I'm very interested now in learning and very excited about is to see how all of the evergreen and replatforming concepts of Salesforce are coming out. So looking at that, watching that space, seeing maybe how the newer acquisitions, like I was mentioning Tableau earlier, how that all plays together with the existing Salesforce stack and how that develops. The whole integrated concept from Salesforce, the customer 360, and all of the integrated vision that Salesforce is now making more and more tangible and applied to business contexts is going to be really interesting.
Yeah, for sure. And then aside from the technology, what initiatives or groups or what are you really passionate about from the ecosystem, from the whole HANA and you know the groups that you're involved in and initiatives?
I try to support as much as I can and to engage as much as I can in different ways. So to me, it doesn't matter which kind of group you're affiliated with. I want to help everyone be successful as much as I can. I focused maybe a little bit more lately on two areas, probably women in tech and helping ladies have the courage to step into Salesforce, to progress into Salesforce. So I've had some really good conversations with, for instance, organizations like Supermoms. You probably know them also.
Yeah.
So I'm an ambassador for them in Germany, and I was just having a very nice conversation with Heather yesterday because she's studying for her CTA path. So as much as I could help, I am super glad to. It's super exciting. And she was sharing her concerns with, oh, will I ever be able to learn coding because I've never done it? So it was quite interesting to see that kind of perspective.
Sure.
What I've also done lately is so I've just launched yesterday, actually, the first Women in Tech Salesforce Trailblazer community in Munich. And I honestly would like to make it as broad and as open as possible for everyone, regardless of gender. We're stronger together, so it doesn't matter if it's women, men, whatever gender everyone considers themselves to be, and across every region. Now we are virtual pretty much. We will have virtual events. Once all of the challenges pass, we will have a mix of virtual and in person. So really, I want to create that kind of home for everyone to be able to join and to contribute and to learn. And something else I've been passionate about lately, and I've been working also with the official Salesforce team who is managing the Certified Technical Architect program. So with Suzanne and Kristen, who have been amazing. I've worked to develop the technical architect program with new offerings for preparing people who want to either become better architects or to go for the CTA review board. So we've been piloting together all kinds of offerings, very exciting stuff. Some of it has already gone live, like what is called the CTA 601. So the training for becoming a CTA. So once you pass your system and application architect, there is this training from Salesforce that helps you understand what's next. What do you have to do in order to pass the review board? So we just launched the first virtual CTA 601 in EMEA last week. Funnily enough, I was the one who ran the first in-person CTA 601 when it was not even launched in EMEA like 2 years ago. So it kind of all comes together nicely. Yeah, nice. And they have all kinds of other super interesting initiatives that will come out soon. So I'm excited about that.
Well, we'll keep our eyes peeled for that. And I think that's great because I've always found that there seems to be a gap between system and application architect and what's next. I think that's always been a bit of a gray area, is how far of a stretch is that between the two, or between having the two and then having the third, right? So yeah, that's exciting. How do you find time to sleep?
Well, that's a good one because I also have kids. So I have a son, and it's probably him who doesn't really let me sleep. But otherwise, to be honest, because I'm very excited about all of the initiatives that I run, I just find time for them and I prioritize a lot. And sure. I have all kinds of tools and ways of prioritizing I've defined and found for myself over time, because otherwise I realized I was not able to manage things properly. So at some point, as I evolved in a kind of on the responsibility scale more and more through my roles, I felt the need for prioritization and for understanding what is critical, what is really important at a certain point in time, and that helped me a lot.
Yeah, for sure. So you may have just answered this question because this is my final question. And if you could go back 10 years and give yourself one piece of advice, what would it be?
It wouldn't have been about prioritizing, because I think that kind of came naturally. And I think that's a growth and evolution that everyone finds for themselves. It would have probably been in the sense of trust yourself. Like many other people, I think I didn't doubt my own capabilities, but I wasn't sure if I'm doing the right thing, if I would be able to, for instance, pass the CTA. I felt rather confident, but do I really have the skills to do it? So be more confident in your capabilities and on your choices, and probably seek advice earlier from people who can help you, and that doesn't have to be your manager or someone in a higher position. Anyone can help you out in different ways. So seek more advice and trust yourself.
Nice. And I did say that was my last question, but there is one more. If people do want to reach out to you for advice, where's the best place for them to come?
They can always reach out to me on LinkedIn, definitely. My email, I'm happy to write that down and
We can share that. Yeah, that's
yes,
fine.
I can share that. So it's doina.popa@innotrue.com. And I also have a Calendly, if you know the application, where you have your calendar open and people can book slots. So I also have that published, and people can just reach out to me for different topics, and I'm happy to talk to them.
I love that you're only telling me that now, because otherwise, I'd have been booking this slot in for every Friday. Calendly is brilliant. I love it. It's I've just started using it myself, and it saves so much time.
I like to make a mix of it, being able to manage my own time and make my own choices. Going back to the prioritization, not everything is as important as something else. This, for instance, was really important to me now, so I squeezed it in. But I make this kind of mix of allowing people to reach out to me and me setting up meetings from my own initiative, because I think they're important, some of them. So.
Sure. Well, look, thank you so much. Every time we chat, I love the conversation. Really good to catch up. I'm sure InnoTrue is going to be a huge success, and I wish you every success for the future. And I can't wait to see you at a future event when we're back in person. So thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Ben. It's been a pleasure.
Thank you.